You know, the last line of the movie Shawshank Redemption is the word hope. And if you remember, I think his name was Andy Dufresne, was the guy who had escaped from prison, wrongfully convicted. And then Morgan Freeman's character was the person who, you know, played out his term and got issued parole. And if you remember, he said, "I hope the ocean is as blue as it was in my dreams. I hope my friend Andy Dufresne, you know, is where he said he was going to be." And the last two words were hope. And I hear these stories, Rev, and I hear families that, and hope is a powerful thing. We could get biblical here, and I could talk about faith, hope, and love, but, you know, the greatest is love. You and I have had this debate about the goodness of hope and offering people hope. And you hear these families, the mothers and the fathers. I mean, it tears my heart apart. And I said yesterday, I'm the biggest redneck in the world who eats gasoline on his hot dogs and believes he's tougher than anybody.
You're a tough guy.
But you hear the hope in these families and the thanks they pay to the McLeod Children's Hospital. And it's important because families in those certain situations and dire circumstances need to find some hope and some goodness in what is normally what I would believe a very difficult circumstance and situation. And the way that hope is provided is through the generosity. That's probably not the proper way to say it, but we'll let it slide for 6:30 on a Friday morning. The generosity of our listeners and people who are willing to give to a very worthwhile cause. The number is 1-843-777-4483. So if you want to be, in a very humanistic way, if you want to be a provider of hope, I think that's a unique way to look at it, a provider of hope, giving a family who would much rather be somewhere else. I said yesterday, I wish we didn't have to have children's hospitals. I wish every baby was born right on time with the perfect whatever the viables need to be or the vitals need to be. I wish everything was just right. We live in a very imperfect world, and people have to deal with that imperfection. And when it comes to health and wellness, hospitals provide that service, and we're incredibly blessed and fortunate in this community and in this area to have a healthcare provider as committed as McLeod is to making sure that they have the capacity necessary to deal with whatever issue the family and child may be dealing with. Adults end up in life kind of where you deserve. I'm a big believer in that. You know, life isn't fair. Life's pretty fair if you really honestly take account. But these children who we're told, Rev, I've not seen one, but are the size of a cell phone or maybe just a little bit larger. Well, that just breaks your heart. These kids are in a place that is incredibly difficult, and your generosity is the way we create solutions to these health problems. And I'll give the number again, and then we've got a guest, 843-777-GIVE. That's 843-777-4483. One of those ladies responsible for making sure the hospital is here to provide the most excellent care to our kids is Sabrina Capell. She is the Associate Vice President of the Women's Hospital. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning.
I didn't mean to ramble about there for a while, but I think hope is an important word.
I think absolutely, and I think it's not hope versus love. I think it's hope and love. We see the parents come here that love their children and hope for the best. We see our staff come here who love their job. Many of them will say this is a calling for them and that they feel they're doing some very important work, and they love the children. They fall in love with the children. And then our community shows their love. I mean, the response to this radiothon year-round, their response to us is amazing. And, you know, it is amazing how we'll be here, and maybe we're having a day that's not so good for some reason. Maybe a child's having a really rough time, and so we have a rough time. And it's amazing. A family member from the past will come back in. Some of our sponsors and our community leaders will come in and have a visit and have some good words to say for us. Things that will boost the staff and keep them going. So it's hope and love.
Sabrina, from that perspective, we live in a world that we're mandated to do certain things. There was no mandate for McLeod to make this commitment to a children's hospital. This was on their own volition, on their own free will. They felt it was a priority to provide the level of care to the kids who have these issues. Explain that. I mean, the motivation behind McLeod making such a big commitment to something that they could have taken a pass on.
Well, I've been in this business a long time. And, we looked around and there was nobody serving this need. Now, remember McLeod started many, many years ago with the care of a small child or a small child that needed care, and that care wasn't available, and thus the hospital started. So we started with children, which I think is very important. And we've always provided care, but there was a time when I think a conscious decision was made that we needed to step our level of care up, and we absolutely did that. Somebody needs to respond to the needs of these children. And we're here not just for the ones who are in Florence, but the whole PD and Grand Strand area. We have children who, come in via ambulance, or maybe they're referred here. It's a huge need that takes resources and money. Smaller hospitals don't have those resources or money. The money taxing for us, but through being able to have efforts like the Radiothon and year-round fundraising, it does help with that gap, and so we're able to have it. But without us, it's a travel outside of the community, which is such a hardship on so many families.
Almost impossible.
Some families
for some.
can't do it.
Correct.
They absolutely cannot, and so it would be maybe things that would be a solution for that we could cure, take care of. Children may not get taken care of.
The hospital business is no different than the other business. There's a business to run.
Absolutely.
There's a way you got to run that business, but then there's the humanistic component. I keep going back to that humanistic component from your perspective, and I've always been curious about this in a lot of different walks of life. But you're partially responsible for running a hospital, but you see these children. Mm-hmm. Is that hard to balance? In other words, is it hard to look at the hospital as a series of buildings and a business, and then you're taking care of these very precious assets?
I think it is hard. I think it's easier here than it may be at other facilities. We are not for profit. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have to make a profit, but the money that we make goes back to the hospital. So that helps us. We're able to participate in Children's Miracle Network, so that helps us. We are very aware that every dollar that we get from the community is a hard-earned dollar, because we know our community people work hard. We try to use that to the best ability to take care of those children. So, that it is part of our mission and we're committed to it makes it easier than maybe at a for-profit hospital or other situations, but we still have to be cognizant of every dollar. Where do we need to spend it? Because it's plenty of places. But we will, when we purchase something, we use it not until a newer model comes out that looks good or sounds good, but until we really need a newer model.
And these things are really expensive. I mean, whether we like it or not, we're talking about a crib, a certain sort of pediatric crib, the warming blanket. Yeah. I think it was $2,500. We've got a twin bassinet, $1,500. I mean, these aren't things you pick up at Walmart or Target. These are specialty items that serve a very special purpose, and they're incredibly expensive.
That's exactly right. Well, we do have certain regulations we have to meet as far as the materials they're made of, et cetera. Obviously, that drives the dollar up, and we can't go to a local vendor and buy that. But then the other thing is, obviously, think about the wear and tear. You have to have something that's a little bit sturdier than maybe what you would have in your home, because it's just used so many times. So they are expensive.
My last question, and appreciate your time again, my last question would be, do you ever cross paths with a kid who you knew was here, you knew had a positive effect on his life? I just can't imagine, that there's a family, there's a child, the outcome's in question. And then 5 or 10 or 15 or maybe 20 years later, you see the effect or impact you had and the hospital had on that family and that child.
Absolutely. I could tell you multiple stories, and I think everybody here can. There's certain children that you seem to stay in touch with or cross their path, but we've had children come back who are now grown and having children of their own, and they've come up and said, okay, my mom said I better look y'all up and show you what I look like as an adult and tell you I'm just having a baby. We'll run into our community. March of Dimes, we have one of our graduates from the NICU who at one time I really was worried about would he make it or not. Now he's a great fundraiser and doing wonderful as an adult. So yes, we do. That's part of what keeps us going, I think, and part of what shows us this really is the right thing to do for our community.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.